back. We're going to talk about an issue that may or may not have come to your attention, but it is a serious problem and one that it's very exciting to see is being addressed at last. And that is, there are an awful lot of organizations that are devoted, at least ostensibly, to helping veterans, people who have served their country, some of whom have made the ultimate sacrifice. Their families are in need, some of whom are themselves in need. They've been injured or they're simply trying to get a new lease on life as civilians. Unfortunately, not all of those organizations are well run or are doing the work that they claim to be doing. And I was delighted to learn recently of an initiative that is aimed at trying to both remedy the problem of ineffective management and improve the quality of philanthropy to the organizations that truly are helping those very deserving veterans and their families. Um, I'm delighted to have with us for the first time a retired Marine colonel by the name of Peter Metzger. He served with great distinction in uniform, including as a Marine aide to my old boss, President Ronald Reagan. His last duty station back in the mid 1990s was at the pointy end of the spear with the Marine landing force for the Sixth Fleet. He is these days the chairman of the advisory board of the RAM Veterans Foundation. That stands for Robert Alexander Mercer Foundation. And we're going to talk with him about this new initiative of the foundation, charitiesforvets.org. Colonel, it's so good to have you with us. And thank you for, well, your past service to our country and that you're rendering right now. It's good to have you with us, sir.
You're very kind to have me, Frank. I wish I were nearly as articulate as you in talking about what we're doing.
Well,
You've told the story very well.
we've only just whet people's appetite, I hope. Tell us just a little bit about the foundation, if you would, sir, because I
Sure.
was not aware of its existence and let alone the important work it's about.
Yeah, it was initiated by a famous, well-known philanthropist, Rebecca Mercer. And Rebecca's uncle, Robert A. Mercer, was killed in action in November 1944, 78 years ago. And in his memory, and in his honor, and in honor of all veterans, she is the initiator of the Robert A. Mercer Veterans Foundation.
Hmm.
And the charitiesforvets.org is our public information outreach to educate two groups of people: those generous Americans who want to give money to veterans, and those who purport to take the money and give it to veterans.
Mm-hmm. So I've characterized a problem. Talk about it in more precise detail, if you would. The amounts of money that are involved are pretty impressive. The amounts that are going into it seems less effective organizations relative to the amounts getting to those doing the real work is, well, I guess impressive in a negative sense, alarming. Talk us through what you have
Sure.
found so far and what you're trying to do about it.
That's the crux of the problem. I'm about to give you a figure that I think will startle you and your listeners. In calendar year 2021, nearly a billion, that's with a B, $966 million were given to charities we would not recommend,
Wow.
as opposed to 330 million, a third of that, going to charities we do recommend.
Mm.
And when we saw those numbers, I was just floored. $1 billion going places where well-meaning Americans trying to do the right thing, and for some reason it gets diluted along the way, and we can talk more about the metrics later. But that's the baseline number.
Yeah, and diluted along the way is a genteel way of describing what's happening in some of these cases. There have been some very prominent exposés of outfits that were simply, making off with the money essentially, and essentially defrauding both the
Yeah.
philanthropists, as you say, and the intended recipients. Uh, Give us a flavor of why this is. I mean, is it that it's so hard to run a charitable organization to help vets, or is it just that there are a lot of scoundrels in the business?
Well, I'll leave the descriptors to those people's imagination, but I will tell you that as we look at the publicly available information through IRS 990s and state's attorneys general report, all public, we see very clearly what's going on. And we looked at 78 of the biggest charities that purport to support vets. We approved 30 of them
Mm.
and not recommend 48. So we have a very simple system. There's three categories. It's pass fail. You're either recommended, honorable, or not recommended.
Mm.
And on our website at charitiesforvets.org, you can see empirically, it tells you what the name of the organization is, where the money went. We show some examples of some egregious conduct. There's one that whose name I can't recall, but it's on our website. It's based in Florida, and it was initiated by a practicing physician who's licensed to practice medicine in Florida. And he and his wife and son, it's something about healing vets or medical vets. You can see it on the site. They collected $2,200,000 and they gave $13,000 to veterans. So the wife was being paid $100,000 salary as the treasurer of the organization. This is just one example. There are some that are closer than others. And a couple of reasons that we give the grades we do, Frank, is that um, if an organization is spending more than 25% on overhead, we think that's should change. If they're giving less than 75% of the annual budget to the veterans, we think that should change. Another factor is if the organization has more than 3 years annual budget in reserve, we don't think that's a good idea because they're sitting on piles of cash. So an American watches a TV ad, sees a badly wounded soldier, Marine, Airman, sailor, and says, I got to do something about that, writes a check and throws a prayer up and says, I hope this goes to the right place. We're simply trying to put sunshine on the problem.
Yeah.
And so here are the facts.
This is so important, and the metrics that you're using to evaluate what is being done, obviously give people a structure for seeing what might be a red flag to them as well. I am struck by the fact that it's not quite pass fail. You've got honorable there. What puts groups into the honorable category, but not necessarily would you recommend them?
Well, the three categories are based on there are 4 or 5 factors. The two of which I talked about: 25% overhead, 75% going to veterans, and the third is sitting on a bunch of cash. A
Mm.
lot of people take and invest this money for the hopefully the idea that it'll grow in the future, but the veteran doesn't see that.
Right.
So those are the metrics that are used. Now, by the way, Frank, if someone is not recommended, they can challenge that by showing us we got that wrong. Here are some audited financials. We're okay with that. We're simply trying to disinfect the problem with sunshine.
Yeah. And again, I think this is such an important public service because, as you say, many of us either have a passion in our hearts for these men and women in uniform or
Yeah,
formerly in uniform, or they're appealed to by advertising that can be pretty compelling about their difficulties after they've sacrificed on behalf of all of us
right.
for one reason or another. So the distinct opportunity for the misdirection of charitable gifts is very considerable. And so charitiesforvets.org is a sort of clearinghouse, as you say, for the information that people need to go to for informed decisions about their
Yeah.
philanthropy. And what has been the response to these you know efforts to make this whole process more transparent and rigorous on the part of the
We're
charities?
still in the early stage of this national campaign, but I will tell you the word anger is out there because people who have donated say, "Gosh, I wish I would have known this." We have two billboards in Times Square. That's how active we're being in this thing. And I think anger is a good word. People say, "Wait a second, I got a T-shirt," and it's very distressing to people. Now, on the other hand, the veterans are very appreciative. I didn't know this, but there are nearly 20 million of us running around who served in uniform. And there is a real passion, as you know, you're an American patriot, for people wanting to help people. And
Absolutely.
we are the clearinghouse or the consumer report of that effort.
Yeah. And what a great idea! And branding it just that way, I think, is something that will make it even more attractive as a service to the philanthropy community. But I was asking, sir, about how have the organizations been responding, or is it too early to say you've gotten much of a response at this point? I
Well,
assume the ones that are in the recommended category are really good with this, and the others not so happy.
Yeah, there has been, again, Frank, we're very early in the process. We tried to roll this out in connection with Memorial Day, obviously. And so we've gotten some responses, and we've had some not recommended that said, you got that wrong.
Mm,
And our response simply is, thank you very much. Show us how to get it right.
right.
We're trying to improve your financial management as we see it.
Yeah. Yeah. And using not capricious or arbitrary standards, but sort of best practices, I think for uh, various charitable organizations of any stripe. I've run one myself, and I know that these are things that Charity Navigator and the like
Yeah.
similarly apply. And again, this is in response to a demonstrable problem. You're not looking to make trouble. you're
No,
you're
this is
trying
not,
to correct a trouble where it already exists.
it's not a personal matter. It simply
Of
is
course.
trying to ensure that the veterans that we all love and cherish get the money that people want them to get without someone in the middle, for whatever reason, screwing it up.
Yeah. Screwing it up, maybe to their benefit,
Wait, yeah,
maybe simply to the detriment of those that are the intended recipients. Whatever the
right.
reason, it should stop. And hopefully, this, as you say, sunshine is the best disinfectant. And the sunshine that you're putting on it, I think, Pete Metzger, is tremendously important. And again, I really commend you for doing it. Um, Pete, we have to let it go at that. Come back to us with updates if you would, though, please, sir. Next up, we're going to talk with Dr. Harold Rode about Iran, the Middle East, and more right after this.